I'm honored to be speaking today with Cassie Clark, who is a native North Carolinian. Is that how you say North Carolinian?
North Carolinian.
North Carolinian. Sorry about that. And for generations, you have been there. Your ancestors are there, have been there. You started something very interesting, a website called Where the Dogwood Blooms, and it's about preservation of the Carolina's culture. And I'm absolutely connecting with this because I'm all about preserving my heritage, which is the Assyrian heritage. So I have a lot to learn from you, and I hope to stay in touch with you. You also have a podcast. So you launched your website in 2021, and you have a podcast which you launched in 2023. Just briefly tell me, what is beautiful about people of North Carolina and about the state of North Carolina?
North Carolinians, we're very Christian, but we're also very rebellious. There's this kind of rebellious spirit that runs from the coast all the way to the mountains. We are very helpful. Like there's this kind of we prize benevolence. And so, if you see somebody and their tire's flat, like a North Carolinian is going to pull over and help you. Or, if a storm comes and you need, trees cut up or whatever it may be, like a North Carolinian is going to be there to support you. And, I grew up in this culture and I've watched it my entire life. And so I want to preserve those things. To me, they're beautiful. And I know that you don't see them to the same degree in every other culture. And we have this kind of respect for one another. It's not uncommon to watch, a funeral procession and an entire town will pull over on the side of the road with their lights on to mourn with you. Like we just North Carolina is an incredible place, and I want, my it still to be the same when my children are grown and my grandchildren are born. So,
That's absolutely beautiful. And when you speak of such beauty, I remember my father had the vision to come to that sort of America. My mother has been in love with the American culture and the American people. She's 93, ever since she first was exposed to an American and when she was a child in Iran. So for the past 87 years, 86 years, she's loved the American people, and you embody the American spirit. It sounds like North Carolina embodies the America that we had wanted to come to. So thank you for doing this important work of preserving that beautiful culture. And you have suffered tremendously within the last few weeks, have been so treacherous for you. What can you tell us? What is the scope of this hurricane that has devastated your state?
so the western part of our state is mountains, and North Carolina has 100 counties. Over 20 of them saw flooding, severe flooding from Hurricane Helene. That is 1/5 of our state. So we're talking this is a major tragedy. There are people who, of course, they've lost their homes. Finally, we have roads back open. We're starting to see, the power's back on. There are still drinking advisories, though. You have to boil your water before you can drink it. It's I don't even know if I can put into words how bad it is in some areas. Of course, some areas were hit worse than others. Luckily, my hometown, it flooded. Downtown was closed down whenever I was there 2 weeks ago. Um, and everything else was starting to pick back up. Now, I'm hoping that when I get home, I'm going back this weekend. I'm hoping that then downtown will be open and I'll be able to get a better idea of how bad things are. But we went and dropped off supplies in areas where every couple hundred feet the road was washed out. We went to areas where it looked like bombs had gone off in the creek. And I didn't even see the worst of it. I mean, I'm hoping that when I go home this time that I'll be able to go to some of those harder hit areas and drop off supplies. But I've seen videos, I've seen photos. I mean, there are places where entire mountains just there were mudslides, and so houses, roads, bridges just gone. And so I don't know what I'll see, but from the videos, I'm guessing it's gonna be just as heartbreaking as everything I've already witnessed up until this point.
So we don't really have a good grasp on the numbers, the sheer numbers of people that have been buried under mudslides and have been washed away in rivers, correct?
No. So there is a list, it's a Google document where people added missing, um, and then as they were found, or if they still not found, or if they were are presumed dead, or we know that they're dead, people have been updating that throughout this whole entire process. Um, from the actual government, uh, yesterday, or maybe it was a couple of days ago, I heard the number 92 missing floating around. Where that number comes from, I don't know. Um, my our region released a newspaper article the day before that said that the counties didn't even know how many were missing or how many were dead. So where the number 92 comes from, I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, the newspapers were saying that we didn't know how many. And so I mean, I don't know. I can't give that number. I don't know if anybody can give that number.
And those who have survived, where are they living?
So there are shelters open. Some are in shelters. There are others who are living in tents. I've seen photos. Um, I assume that some of them are probably still in their homes. Um, but like I said, the devastation is different from place to place. So, like when I went home, I checked on my grandparents' house. Thankfully, where my grandparents had lived, none of the houses were destroyed. It looked like it hadn't flooded. Um, So all of those people were still in their homes, and there should be power back on there. So it just depends on where you were and how bad the devastation was.
So what are the temperatures? What's the temperature like during the day and in the evening?
So Western North Carolina, we have the highest peaks east of the Mississippi River. It starts snowing at those highest elevations in October. Some of those areas already experienced their first snow. Last night was the coldest night. It got below freezing. Um, right now, I want to say that we're supposed to get another warm front that comes through. It should be somewhere between, I want to say, like 40 and 70 over the weekend. But yeah, it gets bitterly cold up there. And so people living in tents, that's scary.
And if they are inside partially destroyed homes or their homes and there's no electricity, they don't have any heat. They're in
Right.
tents, potentially they don't have any heat. And so, has there been a case or a few cases of hypothermia that has
So
occurred?
I have heard rumors that I have not been able to confirm that in Avery County that there were some cases of hypothermia. I can't confirm that though. I heard that some had passed away from that. Um, I didn't hear anything today, but most of my day today has been running back and forth trying to get information from group to group about where needs supplies and where they can drop off donations and things like that. So I wish I could give you a better answer than that.
And speaking of donations, we are partnering, Iraqi Christian Relief Council is partnering with Black Mountain Home. We have already pledged 5,000. If God wills it and our constituency supports us, we want to bring it to 10,000 to match the 5,000. This is crucial. We have to stand with our fellow Americans. You know, when you're speaking, I'm thinking of all the aid that goes abroad. And look, I'm an NGO that helps my people in the Middle East who've been affected by radicalism. But America is my home. And I have to rise to the occasion. My ministry has to rise to the occasion. And our fellow Americans, we have to rise to stand with each other. When you're telling me these things, I'm little by little, my heart breaks because it shouldn't be this way in the United States of
No,
America.
no, it shouldn't. And I have gone through so much drama over the last few days because I'm not a political account. I'm all about cultural heritage, and that's what I support, and that's what I talk about for my state. But at heart, I'm a hillbilly. And so
Mhm.
being an Appalachian, we grow up and we hear stories about the road to nowhere. If you don't know what that is, that was where the government promised our people that they would ensure that a road was built that would lead people back to their graveyards in Western North Carolina when they built the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. My family, my mama's family, is from Swain County. A lot of those people were forced to move out of the park into other areas, leaving behind our burial grounds. Well, for Appalachia, that's a big deal. We have what's known as Decoration Day. We go home to our cemeteries, we clean everything up, we have service together, we talk about our deceased family members, we reminisce. It's something that's gone on for generations and generations. So, not being able to go back to those graveyards is a big deal. So the government promised that road. They never fulfilled that promise and ended up cutting a check to Swain County. Wasn't all that long ago that that part happened, but this was a battle that went on. I want to say it started in the 1940s.
Wow.
Promise after promise has been made and broken to my people. And time after time, I've watched and I've heard the stories about what happens when you're Appalachian. Because for whatever reason, it seems like, the hill folk, nobody cares. And so, what is this saying? What is it saying right now that people are in need and people are suffering? And people like me, when you try to raise alarm, when you say, hey, look, like people need help, and you want to politicize it or belittle them or you don't care, if it was happening somewhere else, would it be different?
Look, right, left, or center, you're Americans, and this is why we care. We care. And if others are not caring, if the government doesn't pay close enough attention to you, we care and here with you. Even though it's going to be a drop in the bucket, but we're a part of this pain with you. Our hearts beat with yours, and your fellow statesmen and women, and we're going to do everything we can to answer the call. What is the greatest need that you have today that you see around you?
So emergency supplies, I feel like they've mostly been dropped off at this point. I feel like right now, cleanup is probably, and remember, I haven't been home in over a week. I feel like cleanup is probably going pretty smoothly, but it's going to be rebuilding. So
Mhm.
funding is really what's needed at this point. Cold weather supplies, those are going to be necessary, especially for people who are living in, tents or, housing is going to be an immediate need. And let's not forget about employment opportunities. I don't know how many businesses were destroyed. The Appalachia is already known for experiencing poverty, like job opportunities is desperately needed in Western North Carolina. I mean, and these are things that people have been talking about for generations. And still, it's still ongoing. And so now would be a great time for those opportunities to present themselves for people to actually invest in Western North Carolinians. Like now is the time for that.
Absolutely. And we'll do everything in our power to assist in every way we can. Um, Before we started recording this, you spoke so emotionally about the love you have for North Carolina. And I must ask you, can you share one or two stories, human stories? When we talk about statistics, uh, it goes away. It's just a number, but there is human life behind each and every single number. But when we put a name and we paint a face on these numbers, people's hearts are moved. Can you share a couple of stories that you're on the ground? What can you tell us about the people suffering?
So when we went and delivered supplies last time, we went to this tiny little church in a place called Sandy Mush, Buncombe County, North Carolina. And there was a gentleman who was mowing the grass. And we went up and we parked, and he led us into the church to drop off supplies. And we were standing around talking, and this guy's name was Bub. And he was so sweet. He reminded me of my papa. And he was telling us about a gentleman who came to the church for supplies, and apparently he lived nearby in an area that was hard to reach. And he said that he was sitting out on his porch watching the storm and that he'd heard a noise. And so he looked up the mountain, and just across from him was another house. And he said that a rather large family lived there, and that the guy, whenever it was like a loud popping noise, he said that the dad ran outside, and here came the wife and the children. And then a mudslide came, and the whole family was gone. And just listening to him tell that story, I mean, it's something that you don't expect to happen in real life, and yet the mountains are full of these kinds of stories right now, like just full of them. Today I was on Twitter, and I saw a video somebody had tagged me in, and it was two little girls. They couldn't have been maybe 3, 4, and they were singing Jesus Loves Me in front of their house that had a mudslide had come through, and their house was just sticks. And there they stood singing in shorts and t-shirts, and it's cold today. And how anybody could not feel passionately when you know that there are people up there and they've lost everything and they're struggling and they've experienced trauma and horror. I don't know. Like, to me, like, my heart just goes out to all of them. I wish I could fix it.
I know, and I feel you. I feel the pain. I see the pain in your face. And I believe the Americans are the most generous, the kindest people I know throughout the entire world. And I've been to so many countries. I've lived in different countries. There's nobody like the Americans, I must say. But I believe because it's not on the media, Americans just don't know. And if they knew, I think the story would have been different. You would have been giving us some better stories, more hopeful stories. So we will do our small part to spread the word, and I'll talk to as many people as I can. To first of all, to many people that I know don't know North Carolina. I didn't know the things that you just told me. I wasn't aware, and now you have a friend in me. And North Carolina, people of North Carolina have a friend in me, your humble servant. So we will do everything we can in our power to assist. So, what are the top 2 or 3 needs that you have today that people can rise to the occasion and help, whether it's through us or through other organizations?
Right now, I feel like most of the emergency supply needs have probably been filled. A lot of donation places are closing down. I feel like right now it's a matter of funding. I feel like that's the biggest thing that is needed. Just like with, Black Mountain Home for Children. I feel like most of their needs have probably been, as far as donations go, met. Now it's a matter of they need money to be able to buy the rest of the things that they need to be able to finish cleanup and to rebuild part of the facility that they lost. Just the same with the families who have lost their homes. They're going to need funding to rebuild. I think I haven't heard anything about it yet. We have Habitat for Humanity, and they come through and they build homes for people who've lost their homes, and often it deals often they deal with people who are in poverty. I also think that they help during times of disaster. I think that that's a wonderful organization. I'm hoping that I'm going to hear something about them soon. I also think that local churches are phenomenal. When I was back home and we were doing drop offs, the things that these churches were doing was incredible. They were taking supplies by ATV, making sure they got to where they needed to go. They were organized. They were just phenomenal. They it was like they were moving mountains, like they were incredible. And so I feel like that's another great place for people to invest. My biggest fear is that once the novelty of this wears off, then Western North Carolina is just gonna be forgotten again. And
I
so
understand.
I'm hoping that people will raise awareness and that they will let people know, Western North Carolinians, they're not the kind of people who are just gonna leave. They're not gonna go off and find somewhere else that's home. And so we need to do everything that we can to support them.
And we're right here with you. Please go to IraqiChristianRelief.org, IraqiChristianRelief.org to donate 100% of what we raise for North Carolina for victims of Helene will go to Black Mountain Home for Children. I've already contacted Jimmy, and Jimmy Herman is there. I'm not sure if he's the founder, but he's the president. So I'm already in contact with him. So, dear friends and supporters of Iraqi Christian Relief Council, you've always risen to the occasion. You have been with us for 17 years. This is important. This is not the other side of the world. This is on this soil, on the American soil. These are our fellow Americans. So I ask you to go to IraqiChristianRelief.org, help us match dollar for dollar. At least we want to raise 5,000, so the entire donation is 10,000. But if we can do more, we will do more. Cassie, I cannot thank you enough. You have been on the ground yourself, working so hard, and you're an inspiration to all of us. We are Jesus's hands and feet on the ground. He doesn't have a body on earth. He doesn't have his eyes and his feet, and his hands are not here, as Saint Teresa of Avila has said so beautifully. You are his hands and feet on the ground, and you serve so selflessly. Thank you so much. I hope to stay in touch with you. I hope to learn from you about the cultural preservation efforts that you have for North Carolina, and may we celebrate the end of suffering. I know it's going to be a long time, but we're here with you.
Thank you, ma'am. I much
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much. God bless you.